Hello, career thought leaders. It's good to see you today. And we are going to be talking about how we help our clients prepare for these AI assessed interviews. So, I was doing a little bit of research for this session. And if you've been on before, we've talked about the systems like HireVue that do the one-way interviews and they are AI assessed. And I learned something new that I didn't know about other systems beyond HireVue. So, I hope you'll stick around and hear how these systems are assessing our clients and what we need to do to help them succeed. I'm Marie Zimenoff, CEO of Career Thought Leaders and Resume Writing Academy, and we do this show every Tuesday, Trend Tuesday Live, bringing you the now, the new, and the next in the careers industry so that you can better help your clients and really be prepared to answer their questions and help them succeed in the job world today, whether that's job search, advancing in their career, or anywhere in between. So let's talk a little bit about these one-way interview systems. And they are continuing to increase. Right now, we've got more and more applications for every external job. And so we know that they've got to find a way to screen as many applicants as possible. So we're trying to see this as a positive, right? They're using technology to try to get as many people as they can into their systems. And a few weeks ago, we did a show on what will happen if the resume goes away. And this is one of the things that I am hearing recruiters talk about a lot. So I just was on a session last Friday with Hung Lee from Recruiter Brainfield and Brain Food, and they were talking about how they're trying to get rid of the resume in the process. And the number one thing I heard over and over and over again that they want to replace the resume is video. Now, I got to say, like, my mind was kind of blown, right? Because they're talking about getting rid of the resume because of bias and replacing it with video. Okay, so I don't know if we're going to achieve the goal of getting rid of bias by doing that, but that's what they're talking about. So I think we're going to see more video interviews, both asynchronous. So I'm going to call that one way most of the time because asynchronous is a really big word, right? So these one way video interviews, meaning that your client hops on, their system does it. The system is just a system interviewing them using pre-programmed questions. Typically, there's some kind of time limit, right? We are going to see more of that. I also think we'll see more of the video interview, obviously screening, but we're just going to see more actual one-way video interviews because I don't know how you would do anything else that could replace the resume. This was my man. So I'll keep paying attention to what these recruiters are talking about, but this was over and over and over and again, the way that they're talking about replacing the resume as video. Some of them were talking about questionnaires or assessments. Yeah, thanks, Joanne. Some of them were talking about questionnaires or assessments, but assessment is really hard for a lot of different types of roles, right? Assessment works well for technical roles and maybe some gamification for strategy, marketing, business types of roles. But yeah, it was very interesting. So anyways, needless to say, we're going to see more video. I believe we'll see more one-way video. And remember that even when your client is live Zoom interviewing with a recruiter, they can be using an overlay AI technology that's scoring your answers, scoring your video, even though you're live. And yes, they will disclose that and tell you about it. But we aren't just practicing for the asynchronous when we're talking about these AI graded AI assessments of video, right? Interviews. We're also talking about those Zoom live interviews are still, there's systems that will overlay and score those. Some using AI, some using, well, I guess it's all AI, but some more advanced than others, right? So the wild world that we live in, right? And that our job seekers are going out into. 60%. So this is from a SHRM 2024 study that 60% of large companies are using AI-driven interview platforms, HireVue, Modern Hire, VidCruiter. And so these systems are taking over it's be interesting to see, and I'd love to hear you if you're watching this live or you come back to watch the recording, what types of roles are you seeing your clients have these video interviews for? Drop us a note, let us know. A lot of times people will say entry level, but I had a friend of a friend who was interviewing for a mid-level role, and the first step was this one-way video interview. I think you're going to see it more ubiquitous across mid-level and below types of interview processes. So how do these work? And technology behind it, but let's just look at a kind of bigger picture. So they are scoring your speaking clarity, your keyword usage. So just like a resume parsing and scoring system, they're scoring the words that you're using for the keyword matches. They're scoring your emotional expression and behavior traits like empathy, etc. Now you might remember, so here's the little lesson that I learned while I was doing this research for today. HireVue had the facial scoring, facial assessment in the beginning, and then they got rid of it in 2000, 2001. They got rid of their facial scoring because it's biased and neurodiverse, non-English language speakers, native English language speakers. It does have some issues. So they got rid of it. And so silly me thinking that that meant that most of the systems would have gotten rid of it. But it turns out that most of the systems, and HireVue is just one, right? It does have a big part of the market share, but most of the systems collect facial recognition. And so I found that 2024 survey showed that 52% of companies use AI facial analysis, facial recognition type of in their stuff. And that was in 2024. And then 2025, 63%. And that was a resume builder study. So usually smaller sample sizes, but still to see that coming back and seeing it increase in this world where we're talking about neurodiversity, we're talking about these important topics, I found a little disheartening. So what are they looking for when they score your facial recognition? And I'll have my team put together this in a visual. But so they are looking for a few different things. Let me just check and see. Hi, Lily. Yes, 2021, HireVue got rid of those. Yes, yeah. Hey, thank you for joining. So when we're talking about what they're scoring, here's what they're scoring. So they're looking for soft skills, EQ, and that is both the words and the face, looking for do your facial recognitions kind of align with what you're saying, right? And this all just is right. It's very non-neurodiverse friendly of do your features match, are they appropriate for the emotions, those types of things. Behavioral traits, so eye movement, like furrowing your brow, looking uninterested, some of those things, smiling, all being scored. Your sentence length, tone, speed, word choice. Again, we're scoring just like a resume gets scored. Also scoring your tone, kind of like Grammarly scores. Are you, how is your coming across in terms of your tone, and your language use also shows that emotional expression. Then they're scoring cognitive or psychological traits. We've looked at the big 5 personality traits, right? So a lot of the systems like HireVue will give you a big 5 score. So your ocean profile, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, which isn't really what it sounds like, but yeah. So they'll score those 5 traits as well. Match your face with your ID, which is becoming more important as people try to have AI avatars or whatever fake these interviews for them. And then the mood and honesty. So your micro expressions and your tone of voice, they can measure that with AI to determine if you're telling the truth. It's just fascinating, right? All of this is fascinating. There's so many things that get in the way of this. Neurodiversity, just being nervous, like you're saying, people who have facial issues, whatever it might be, right? So thinking about all of this makes me very nervous. However, We've got to do what we can do to help our clients. And a lot of these skills can be learned. Not all of them, and not by all people, of course, but a lot of these can be learned. We can help people work on their pitch, their tone, their intonation, helping them tell their stories. We can help them identify stories that maybe more naturally bring out some of the positive and authentic emotion. So there are some things that we can do here, but I think first of all, it's just important that we understand that this is happening. We understand what's being measured. So we can help people with their pacing and their clarity in their stories. A lot of this comes from practice, not necessarily memorizing. I call it internalizing. So certain stories we want to have rehearsed so much that they just come naturally as possible. So we practiced some of these stories, our main stories, right? Our big rock stories, if you will, like the story you tell when someone asks you about, your kid or how you met your spouse or whatever it is, that internalized story. We want to have a few of those in our job search repertoire that we have practiced. Because when we practice the story in its entirety, we can get feedback on all of those elements, the pacing, the way that our story flows, the clarity. So here's a trick that I learned in choir. And I would love for you to share other places that you find tricks to help people, because I think we don't learn these skills anywhere, and there's some acting tips we can use, but this one for me is from choir. So when you sing in choir, they tell you to make sure you finish every word, right? That you use the consonant at the end of every word to finish the word. And that slows you down because you have to close the word at the end before you move on to the next word. And so it's a good strategy for people who talk too fast, that they could focus on finishing each word, put the consonant at the end of each word. There are some other singing types of practices that can help people. So if they're very monotone, have them listen to someone singing a scale, right? Do, re, mi, fa, and practice that to understand how they can use the different levels of their voice. If someone's very high pitched, same thing. They could practice the scale and how would it feel to tell your story in that, in a lower note than where you typically lie on the scale. We know those things matter. We know it's easier to listen to a little lower pitched voice, right? And so we can help our clients do those things, practice those skills so that they can be more effective. Oh, yes, Anthony. You are also a singer. I don't know what the right word is, a member of the chorus in high school. I don't know if I did a little bit in college, but yeah. And so you learn some of those skills. One of the other ones, I'll just tell you this. We teach this in our interviewing class. I think it's a lot of fun. And so if you've got someone that's more quiet and reserved, to have them practice with you or maybe even by themselves first, doing it as big as they can imagine doing it. Like, do it as big as you can. I want the gestures. I want the voice. I just want it as big as you can get it. And then what happens is they're naturally going to tone down, right? They're not going to do it that big. But since you've stretched, it's kind of like when you stretch out a rubber band and it never goes all the way back to what it was. When we practice that stretch of being bigger than we usually are, then we can be more malleable. And we're always looking to match both the pace and volume and those types of things of the interviewer. When we match, it makes communication feel more comfortable. So when we can do some of that, it can be helpful. But if we've practiced kind of doing it both directions, you could also do it with somebody who's really, really loud. You could say, okay, do this like the tiniest little mouse. You could do it like, right? Just to expand that range of our volume, our pitch, all of those, to help us be less monotone, be able to mirror our interviewers, and really express that emotion in the moment. So are all of us going to be good actors? Absolutely not. That's not what we're looking, and we're not wanting them to be non-authentic. We're just helping them expand their range and then find where they might authentically be able to move, right? So if my range is like this, my monotone, that I'm quiet, if we can do some practice that maybe expands that big, then they come back and they've got just a little bit more range where they can match, they can have some of that pacing, and they can be a little bit more engaging on the screen. Um, Oh, yeah, the inflection at the end. So the singing technique of ending each consonant might help with that as well. Um, and thinking about maybe even if you're thinking of the scale and you can, I just YouTube it. Give me a scale, or you can watch, if you're older, you might watch, oh, what's the movie? Anyways, and you find even a cartoon where they're singing the scale. Practice the scale, and then at the end of your sentence, we want to go down on the scale instead of up. So there's some more concrete ways of thinking about it might be helpful with people so that they can practice that way. Yes, yeah. It's important, and for women, and women helping them not lower their voice, but practice being a little bit more in a tiny bit lower pitch can help depending on their voice. Um, Sound of Music. Thank you, Anthony. I just saw something where they were showing that movie, which I know is not politically correct, but yeah, there's some parts of it that might be helpful for people. So when we think about coaching people for this, again, we don't want it to be inauthentic because these systems are also looking for that. We just want to help them practice and expand their range so that they can tell a story. We also want to help them practice their stories. I know lots of people just want to bullet point it out, but I do want to practice people saying their stories and then using some of the tools that we have at our disposal to score those stories. So I love Udly as kind of a good way to start. Udly, great fun company that I'm just going to put Udly in there. So that company, it's a system. Poised, there's other ones that will give you feedback on your pace, your intonation, your uh, personality is not the right word, but the tone, inflection, the way that I feel when I listen to you, right? Or is it uplifting or negative? All of those things. So that system, people get 5 free Udlys and they can play around with that and get some of that feedback. And we as a coach can help them with that, right? So the other piece is keywords. And this is why practicing their stories is important in terms of how it might align to the job search and the job that they're applying to, because they're going to get scored on that. Now, there are some, very technical tools that can help with this. You can use a system like Big Interview. I know some of you use it. Drop whatever you're using in the chat. I'd love to see what some folks are using. But you can use a technology. Teal recently added an interview prep tool as well. So there's some tools you can use to do this. You can also put your answer in something like ChatGPT, right? Where now you can use a little microphone button. You could record your answer there and have ChatGPT analyze it related to the job description. Kind of depends on how advanced you want to get. If you want to spend some money or do a free trial or something and get the score. One of the other ones I love for this is HireLogic. So HireLogic is a tool that recruiters can actually use as the co-pilot. As I was saying, you're on a live Zoom interview, but HireLogic is sitting over there as an overlay, tracking your answers and scoring them against the job description that the recruiter plugged in. And although it's a recruiter's tool, they've been very generous and come and done some demos for us during Tech Jam so that we could see that you can use it as a coach as well. There's a free version that you can access and do some practice as well. So HireLogic is one of them, and Udly is the other one. So Udly is the more speaking feedback tool. It's not necessarily specific to interviews, although they've got that knowledge in there. And then HireLogic is the one that recruiters can use that scores against a job description that you can also use. So those tools can be helpful kind of on the free or low end. And then if you wanted to use something like Teal, and like I said, they just rolled out a new interview feature as well, interview scoring feature in their platform. And then there's others. It's funny. So Final Round, and I was like, oh, am I even going to talk about this? So Final Round is the system that will let you have AI help you answer a question while you're live, which I would not recommend for most of our clients. They're having a hard time staying connected to the interviewer enough rather than trying to get an AI to tell them the answer they should be reading. But Final AI also says they have an interview prep tool that will do some of this scoring and feedback in terms of your alignment with the job description, as well as your other scoring factors, the facial analysis and those types of things. So I might try it out on a free basis, but I was a little hesitant to support them since I definitely don't support the use of that tool where it's popping up and telling you the answer while you're trying to interview. That just seems like it would get in the way for most people. So when we're thinking about helping people prepare, it's those two aspects, the humanistic piece of helping them come across as engaged and energetic. We can practice some of those skills, telling the story, using the acting tips, tell it as big as you can, tell it as small as you can, and all of the things in between that can help people be a little bit more animated. And then we're looking at the words to make sure we're hitting the core competencies that the question's asking for. And we can use AI, Gen AI, as well as some of those other AI tools to do that. The last thing that we usually talk about, right, is structuring your stories. And my little thing for that has always been CART. So context, action, result, and tie back. So context is, why were you doing this? Now, what I love, I just saw this in somebody else's LinkedIn post, Mark, but for some reason, Mark, I'm not remembering your last name, but I will drop it when I remember it. So Mark was talking about how when you lead with the result, it hooks people in. So this is how I do that with context. So let's say that you were kicking off a project to get $100 billion in sales. That's a lot, but I am got it someone in my life right now that's the new business unit, that's the business unit's goal. And yes, he even thinks it's a little bit outlandish, but so 100 billion in sales is the goal. So when we create context with a number, with a metric, and this also, Susan Britton teaches this, she talks about SMART stories, and the M is the metric. When we say that first, it gets people's attention. So I was on a marketing team, and their goal was to launch a new business unit that could reach 100 billion in sales in the next 5 years. So like this context is set, right? And you're on the edge of your seat of, are they going to do this or not? Then you've got the actions and the results. Now, you might have to choose a different story if you didn't get very close to those results, but that's where we're going with it. Now, the other way that, based on Mark's post, you could do it. I was playing around with this the earlier today too, although I can't really talk about it without hearing Katy Perry roar, right? So result, opportunity, action, result. I got a result sandwich. So why is this so important? So we usually teach, situation, task, action, result. Situation and task can be very boring, right? People get caught up in all the context setting of things that really isn't important, because most of the time that's easier than getting to the result. And so we fumble around, we spend too much time there. So I love this idea of setting the stage when possible with the goal. It's kind of like, we used to call it a big, hairy, audacious goal. That was way back in the day. The BHAG, what's your BHAG? And people would say that and be like, oh my gosh, that's such a bad, whatever it is, acronym. But that's the part of the story that hooks people in. And so Mark Masano, that's, I think, the last name I was looking for. Thank you for that. I love it. And when possible, that is a great attention getter. But you do have the story structure, whichever story structure you choose. If you like your star, go for it. If you like context in the car, the T is a tie back. So tying back how your story relates to their specific situation with either a statement or a question, so that you can connect to the interviewers and keep the conversation going. So thinking about that for yourself and for your clients then helps put it all together. So I've practiced my intonation and my storytelling and my scale, my volume, my pitch, all of that. Then I'm thinking about my keywords, and then I'm putting it all in that structure so that it flows well and I can practice it, whatever structure that is. So when we're thinking about how we help job seekers, it's really not any different than a human person, except for that it can score in much more detail, right? It's scoring your words, it's scoring your facial movements, it's scoring all of that. So that means we have to give more detailed feedback. Might mean that we need to do more mock interviews. It might mean that we need to bring in one of these technologies who can help catch the things that we as humans probably aren't as good at catching or and telling. Your facial recognition, your intonation, all of those things are going to be harder for us to catch and to give feedback on. That's why I love the systems like Udly that can do part of it for you, and then you can still give the content feedback as well. And we can use some of the recording, transcribe, score in the AI systems, the generative AI systems, for free as well. But those are some areas to think about with your clients when they're interviewing through these online tools, as they increasingly will be, but they're also helpful with a human interviewer on the other side. So it's not, it's for everyone that you can help them achieve those goals. So we do have a few things going on. Today is the last day for our, that's the wrong button, for our Everything 30 for 30. So this is a promotion that we do to give you a little sneak peek into our membership community. So our membership community includes access to all of our coaching webinars we've done in the past, all the writing webinars, business, as well as the live events in May and June. And we're doing our business boot camp this Thursday, Friday, and Monday, where you're going to go through our new system that helps you identify the lead generation processes that will be the best fit for you and your clients. We've done it once before in March, got rave reviews, so we're doing it again this Thursday, Friday, and next Monday, focused on building your business. And that's included in here, as well as a session we have coming up in June on coaching during career transition mayhem, right? Everybody's changing industries. Everybody's trying to figure out where the bright spots in the market are. And so we're going to give you some tools to help people do that on June 6th. So join today, get 30 days of access to all of that, as well as all of our membership community perks. So we'd love to have you join us. It's just careertl.com/everything30, and you get 30 days of access to all of that. We do have our certified interview and negotiation compensation coming up as well. And on Friday, we do our AI in career services every Friday. We're going to be talking about using AI tools to help you prepare for and negotiate salary. So join us on Friday. And if not, then we'll see you next Tuesday for the Now, the New, and the Next in Careers. Thank you, everyone.